Hello there, it's Dusty Thunder with another Reddit story for you. This one from our very own Dusty Thunder subreddit is titled, Am I the Astronaut for Providing Any Sort of Pressure on My Husband to Have a Kid? Throwaway, hello all, this is my first time posting an AITA and seeking advice mostly. I'm a late 30s female married to a wonderful early 40s male, husband to be called Jojo. Jojo and I met when I was in my early 20s. We have always been friends first, and before we even started dating, he and I discussed kids. At the time, early 20s, I did not want to have kids, and in one regard, I wasn't financially stable, and in the other, I felt like the universe had always told me no. Jojo opened up to me and told me that his family had a genetic disorder that could impact him and he didn't want to have kids. Our relationship was and is one of the most supportive friendships and partnerships I have ever had, and every day I love him more and more. We have been married for 10 years now. We held firm to no kids until about 5 years ago when he came back from a work trip and admitted to each other that we both wanted to have a kiddo. We were in the middle of buying our first home and thought that would be our next plan after we completed the process. As per usual, the universe shouted a resounding no. Once the house was finalized, Jojo asked that we seek medical for him as he had been extremely depressed. It was something that we both had watched grow and fought with during the home process, but after the home purchase, it got bad. Once we went to the doctor asked what could have brought it on, and Jojo gave his familial medical background, including the genetic disorder, which does in fact include depression and cognitive decline. The doctor immediately referred us to a neurologist for testing. It turned out that Jojo does in fact have the genetic disorder. As soon as that happened, he turned to me and said, well, no kids. He told me that if I wanted an out, now would be the time since it was official. I told him that he was what mattered to me and that I was here for him. I love him so much. That didn't stop me from wanting kids, however. Once we got a stable place and management of the illness, I broached the topic again, bringing up options like IVF, pre-implantation testing, etc. He seemed to be on board at first, and even our mom said they would help with the cost. He was encouraging right until I scheduled a consultation, then he shut it down. This has been the situation for the past 5 years. I'll broach the topic gently just for him to shut me down. For his side of things, he says he doesn't want to have a kid that will have to take care of him or that will be held back by him. He personally didn't get to know his dad due to the same genetic disorder. No matter what I say, he won't even consider the topic anymore. It's to the point where the other day he made a joke about kids and I told him to stop doing it because I can't deal with jokes about us having kids anymore. I feel like I'm the asshole, and at this point, I wonder if I should just go to therapy and ask them to fix me because clearly I am stuck. So Reddit, what do you think? Edit to clarify, adoption, fostering, etc. were all in the cards prior. We both believe in making your own family, whether that be with or without kids. But as with the other options, that is off the table as well. Final edit, okay. I was for sure on the right track. It's a hard gear shift to go from kids are possible to kids ain't. And that's on me to get the over. 5 years is a long time, and even if I let the jokes get to me and they try to reignite some maternal feels, I need to squash it where it lives. The short is, I made a promise to him at our wedding, at the diagnosis, and every day that we are a team 1,000%. I made that call already and was just unable to realize that the option was officially DOA. Thank you all for your advice and for helping me here. Okay, maybe I should have held the final edit off till I talked about it for a minute, but what are your thoughts on this? Asking, like, okay, so it's not... It almost doesn't feel like a pressuring thing because they had talked about it before and because he was on board before. I think once the diagnosis became official, he's been a hard no on this ever since. It seems like. Let me go back up here for just a second. This has been the situation for the past 5 years. I'll broach the topic gently just for him to shut me down. Okay, so for the past 5 years, it seems like it's been consistent. Before that, there was a time whenever he was perhaps more open to the idea, but for the past 5 years, it's been a consistent no. And I think that pivot obviously lines up with when the official diagnosis happened. So at that point, I think you just have to accept that it's not in the cards and you do have to make a decision. You have to say, is this my team? Or is my desire for a child, does it outweigh my desire to be on this team for the rest of my life? I understand his logic, not wanting to have a child that's going to have to take care of you. You have to respect that opinion, right? Broaching the topic gently for the past 5 years is different than pressuring, though, right? Yeah, I think adoption is out because it's no longer just about the child potentially having the same genetic disorder. It's about not wanting to burden a child whether that is biologically theirs or adopted or IVF or anything, with having to take care of him when he's battling this later in life, because he went through the same thing. Not having to take care of him or not getting to know him. Yeah, it's a 2 yes, 1 no situation, right? It is a 2 yes, 1 no situation. It is different. It's not pressuring, like gently bringing it up. But I think once the precedent here was once you've got like 2 or 3 consistent no's after diagnosis, it's a no. Like bringing it back up is something that is just seeking pain. You know who I'd really like to have up here to talk about this situation is Candy Thunder. We are damn near at the 4K bulk goal.
I was telling Tony this is a story where I'm not sure, because it kind of feels like on our journey to have Navy. Like we went back and forth multiple times. Like we gave up, we tried again, we gave up, we tried again. But in my heart, I know that if we hadn't have been able to have a child, like that wouldn't have changed our relationship, I guess. But I do feel like if you think it would?
Well, I think the difference here is that if we ran into some kind of medical reason that was big enough for it to become a non-starter topic, right, that we would have bared that burden together.
Yes.
And it feels like OP's husband accepted that burden, bared that burden, but OP hasn't quite accepted it yet. It almost feels like it's a little bit of denial.
So I feel like him, and I agree, if you were diagnosed with something and that diagnosis leads to a firm, I do not want to have kids, I completely understand that. And I get that. And I understand the selfish part of having kids, knowing that that's what it looks like. However, I don't think turning to your spouse directly after receiving that diagnosis and being like, so no kids, like that's not a conversation. That's a ripping the Band-Aid off. Here's how I feel in the hospital, like, or doctor's office where we just received life-changing information for you. And then you're like, no kids. Like, to me, that would be, OP hasn't had time to mourn the loss of what she wants. Because if you can't have kids and you want kids, like, you have to grieve that loss.
Yeah.
And she kept holding out hope that she was going to have a kid, and it didn't happen. And now, like, she has to grieve. Like, she has to let that go.
It feels like he's grieving this too, but he's doing it by joking about it. That's how he's coping, right? And she can't cope that way. Like, she doesn't think about it that way. She's not able to. It's just they're grieving differently. Right. But I don't think that means that, the relationship is ruined. I think communication is a good idea here.
I think that they both need to have conversations. They need to be on the same page. Because right now she's willing, like for her edit, she's willing to accept, that she needs to support him and that kids are off the table. But I still feel like together, like that is like you said, it's like 2 yeses, like for kids.
Yeah.
And they don't have that. So therefore, if you want to stay in the relationship, you have to grieve the loss of that and come together and move forward stronger instead of making jokes about it. That may be how he grieves, but to her, it's like maybe the joking isn't coming across as serious as it needs to come across so that she completely understands that that's it. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like she is holding out hope. They need to communicate together to move forward.
Am I the ask enough for providing any sort of pressure on my husband to have a kid? What was your ask on rating? You don't think either one of them sucks here, okay?
I just feel bad.
Candy Thunder isn't on an NTA here, and NTA for both parties. It's communication issue. And maybe it's an ask on for both because they could have done things differently, but I don't think you have the ability to do things differently until you recognize what actually is happening. First, being able to understand and recognize that you are grieving would give you the ability to communicate that. Until you know that, how do you communicate that? But therapy is a damn good way to figure out those things, to be able to spot those things and have somebody else say, well, it sounds like or looks like you're doing X. Is that what you feel is happening? Whenever you can't see them yourself. So